In order to fight COVID-19, you need money. Budgets need to be in place in order to take the fight against COVID-19 to the fullest. What is the situation in parts of South Africa? What is the situation in Johannesburg with regards to budgets? Natasha Phiri is following up on this story. She's coming to us live. Natasha, a very good morning to you. What are you learning with regards to monies allocated in the fight against COVID-19?
Well, very good morning to you, Blaine, and of course to our SABC viewers. Well, in terms of money, Blaine, you would know that President Cyril Ramaphosa last week had said that 20 billion rand would be allocated to municipalities to actually help them fight the COVID-19 virus. And as you know that Johannesburg, Blaine, is the economic hub of the country, and not only the country, you know, the African continent at large. As you know that Johannesburg is a world-class African city, Blaine, and of course to join me and to speak, more to this effect, I'm joined by the MMC of Finance, Jolie D. Madongo, who will actually, just elaborate more on the Johannesburg's interventions in fighting this deadly disease. Jolie D., thank you so much for joining us on SABC News. We heard the president last week say that 20 billion will be allocated to certain municipalities in helping fight, the COVID virus. As the city of Johannesburg, have you received the amount of money? How much has been allocated to the city?
Well, we have not received the money yet, but already we have received an amount of 342 million rand from the National Department of Human Settlements, which money we are reallocating to deal with temporary accommodation structures as part of the program to decant many of the informal settlements. Because as you know, informal settlements, of course, we have a serious challenge there in terms of social distancing. So we are redirecting that 342 million rand to deal with informal settlements, putting up temporary accommodation structures and so on.
In terms of the health sector, infrastructure within the city as well, how much will be allocated to such departments?
Well, we have already spent a lot of money in terms of procuring PPE, masks, gloves, sanitizers. We have allocated money to deal with the problems in the informal settlements as it relates to the accessibility of water tanks. We have provided those. We are providing additional toilets in the informal settlements. But we are also providing shelter to the displaced people who have been roaming the streets of Johannesburg. We are providing 3 meals a day for those people in those particular shelters.
I also understand, correct me if I'm wrong, I know the city has underspent around 800 million. Also this budget, what will you be doing with this budget?
Well, we have looked into our internal resources and we have realized that we will be underspending currently with about 800 million on the salary bill. But also other line items in the budget. The offices are closed, the telephones are not being used, so there'll be quite a lot of money that we will be underspending, but we will be redirecting the money to deal with the food security issues, because we can't sit idle as a government. When we say people must stay at home, they don't have a means to provide for themselves. So we are looking into interventions around providing food parcels that will sustain the livelihoods of the people.
Jolie D., your department, I beg your pardon, Mr. Madongo, your department, has a huge responsibility. You're in charge of the city's coffers, And in terms of corruption and maladministration, how will you then ensure that, there is no corruption in terms of money? People won't have the opportunity to actually loot this money that is meant to save, millions of lives.
We have made it very clear to the officials in the city that we do not want irregular expenditure in the name of the coronavirus. The city manager has already put up a team that is looking at compliance in relation to procurement issues. The procurement will be done in terms of the laws of the Republic. National Treasury has provided very clear guidelines as to how we procure in relation to COVID, so we are following the rules to the latter.
What other systems, stringent measures have you put in place to ensure that people are actually accountable for the monies that are being deployed to help fight against COVID?
Well, as I've said, the normal processes continue. But over and above the normal processes, there is a compliance team that has been put together so that before we procure anything, that procurement goes through the compliance team so that we look at what is to be procured Are we procuring within the regulations as set out by National Treasury? So those systems are in place and they are working very well.
Mr. Matang, at this time, I mean, a lot of business owners are actually crying out. They need help. They are the hardest hit. We also have, informal traders who are also the hardest hit. What measures has your department put in place that you actually help, entrepreneurs?
Well, in relation to businesses and residents of our city, as it relates to payment of rates and services, we encourage people to continue to pay for their rates and services, because the big problem is that if people don't pay for the water, we will not have the budget to buy water from rainwater and the taps will run dry. If people don't pay for electricity, we will not have money to buy from Eskom so that we supply the electricity, so we will have problems. But we are looking at a number of relief measures, one of those being to write off prescribed debt that the customers of the city have. We are looking at scrapping irrecoverable debt, because we are spending a lot of money trying to recover some of the debt from the residents, and it becomes a futile exercise to spend money to try and recover irrecoverable debt. So we are looking at that, but also we're looking at introducing the second phase of the debt rehabilitation program, where we asking the residents to come forward, pay their current accounts, so that as part of rehabilitating them, we also scrap off some of the charges that they owe to the city of Johannesburg.
Okay. Also, I mean, another issue of contention is the fact that foreign nationals within the city of Johannesburg are also crying out for help. Has there been any interventions from your side, any money allocated to help, foreign nationals who are actually currently struggling throughout this time?
Well, the pandemic presents a challenge to the city to deal with the issue of foreign nationals. At this hour, we are not discriminating against anybody. The laws of the Republic must still apply, but if we've got foreign nationals that are in our shelters, we provide them with all the necessary basics, we provide them with meals and so on. We're not going to be discriminating to say in order for you to get a food parcel, you need to produce an ID, because if people do not have IDs, they are in the country and you can't repatriate them. You can't let them suffer in terms of hunger. You must provide for them.
Mm-hmm. You've also spoken to the effect and said that you would deploy money to, healthcare facilities, the health sector within the city, social relief programs in the form of food banks. I mean, also, what about the Department of, Environmental Affairs and Infrastructure Services? I do understand that there's a program within the city of Johannesburg called Cleaner Johannesburg. And I mean, EPWP workers have been, hired throughout this period as well. So amidst COVID-19, there are actually job creation opportunities.
Indeed, we have agreed with the Department of Environment and Infrastructure Services that we need to augment the services that the city is providing. We need to get on the streets more competent trucks so that we deal with the issue of crime in the city, because especially at this hour in the informal settlements, in the hostels, the problems are huge in terms of waste removal. So we have agreed that we are allocating a lot of money to deal with those challenges, but also deal with the issue of unemployment, as you are correctly saying, because if people are locked down, they are not going to be able to provide for themselves. So some of the people will be sourced in to deal with the issue of cleaning the township, cleaning the hostels, including the informal settlements.
And then just lastly from my side, MMC Matongo, just, for the benefit of the viewers, for those who've just joined us, just round up those sums again. How much has actually been deployed in assisting, the fight against COVID-19 in the city of Johannesburg?
Well, currently we have already spent about 70 million rand in terms of purchasing your masks, gloves, sanitizers, providing the basics in the shelters that we have. We have already received 342 million rand from the National Department of Human Settlements, which we are directing to deal with the problem of high density informal settlements, the whole question of providing temporary shelters so that we observe the issues of social distancing. So we are also reprioritizing within our budget in areas where we are not going to be able to spend money. We've already identified about 800 million that we will not be able to spend as it relates to the salary bill. So we'll be redirecting some of that money to deal with issues of food security, providing people with the basics such as masks and gloves and sanitizers.
MMC, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for, just outlining some key issues, especially that your department will be, prioritizing, helping to fight COVID-19 within the city of Johannesburg.
Thank you very much.
Well, Blaine, there you have it from the MMC of Finance, Jolie D. Matonga. Lots of money being deployed within the city of Johannesburg to actually fight and help fight, the spread of the COVID-19 virus. I neither want to add or subtract to what he just said, so I'll just cross back to you in studio.
All right, Natasha, thank you very much indeed for that report. Natasha Phiri live for us in Johannesburg. So from